when you're at home and dad teaches you certain values, the values need to be seen in action. And I think for me, measurement is action than putting people into a box and say that, oh, you didn't do this, I invested into this particular thing, but your behavior hasn't changed. I might sound ridiculous, but I would like organizations to judge their people on when the 26 July happened in Mumbai, how many of them went out on the road and helped people? When there is death of unknown on the road or accident on the, how many people came late that day by helping that accident victim? What I'm saying is if I make them holistically strong in terms of values, in terms of orientations, perspectives, other outcomes will follow.
But Sanjay, I'll take a different approach.
Sure.
All of us run a business, run a budget. We are accountable for the budget that we have. We are accountable for the investment that we have. So what I'm hearing you, that do it as a philanthropic activity. Just be there. Just train them. Don't expect anything in return. Am I hearing you correctly? Philosophy is okay, but in business, you are measured. You are required by the stakeholders to return on investment.
Yeah, so why create something called as learning and development budget?
Don't create.
Why create? If it is way of life in your organization, you spend on it.
Mm-hmm.
We create, we title it, and therefore that becomes KRA of the L&D head. How much you invested, what programs did you do, what did you do that?
So actually you're going around to say that don't measure.
I have a point to add. I think the way Sanjay said it is all basically outcome based, right? So one of the things that we did try was that suppose the next person's outcome that we expect out of his psychometric analysis is for him to be a better emotional manager, right? And we put him through training one, and then we actually have a third-party feedback mechanism, which is that somebody calls upon him to see how he's doing, one, and two,
measure the learning.
Correct. His personal learning. So what he thinks about what happened with his learning, 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days after he went through that learning. And his superiors and peers give us feedback about whether 360, whether he's on the parameters or on the fundamentals that we wanted him to move on. And if we're seeing movement and change, then we will put him to another program which is more advanced. But if we are not seeing movement and change,
level till you,
then we will put him to more programs of that order until the penny drops in his head.
So anyway, you feel that it should be tracked, must be measured.
Correct. That's the point.
Ashwini sir, you were totally different on the HBR data. You got very carried away.
Yeah.
You said don't spend money.
So how actually in our bank, how we've been doing it is a little bit of the traditional stuff. We at the end of a program have a small exit test, which is then sort of factored on the employees' HRMS data. And the employees who have actually undergone the training, they are also required to give an anonymous feedback on the context of the training that they've received over there.
Feedback on the effectiveness of training. My
Yes,
question, sir,
that
was about impact.
The
and
impact,
measuring the impact.
see, the impact is essentially how we are doing it is, and I had mentioned this, we've realized, and we used to run these BS programs, behavioral sciences programs, where we used to feel really, energized when, as long as we were in the program. When we went back to the workplace, it was all back to square one. So we realized that there is actually a need for a change in the workplace also. So for example, what we've now done is, there's a whole lot of emphasis being placed on soft skill training, etc. And at the same time, we have, we are running what is known as a customer experience excellence program.
Part,
so
basically feel
what they try to do there
is
reduce the transaction time for each and every transaction which is being done.
Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so very consciously what we have done is we've divided all our learning interventions into company-managed learning and self-managed learning. The company-managed learning is something that we track and we measure impact at various levels.
Company management means organized by the company.
Organized. So, for example, my inductions, my functional programs,
The training that you
things
provide.
that people would need to be trained on to do their role better or to move to the next level. The self-managed learning, which would essentially let people become better individuals, better leaders, we leave it to them. We just make the investment and say, if you think it matters to you, go ahead,
Yeah.
invest, and figure it out for yourself. But I'm not going to send you reminders and say, you haven't completed these programs and it needs to be done. That is left to the individual's volition to decide how and at what time he would like to structure that learning.
So let me move to a different topic since I respect your time. Tarun, should the LNOD activity or initiatives be whose accountability? Line manager or LNOD specialist?
So that's where I was actually, when she started speaking, Kavita started speaking, we tried an innovation about 5 years ago. Unfortunately, our HR had changed and we got a little busy with some economic downturn, upturn, and we didn't carry it through. And, it came to my mind when you were talking about it, is that we gave every individual employee his own training budget that year.
Okay.
And we said, this is your training budget and you decide what you want to do with it. You can even decide to learn guitar if you so desire. Fortunately or unfortunately, we'll try keeping it as much as possible to the organizational goals and the business goals. But if there is somebody who believes that he wants work-life balance and wants to do something entirely different, I'm even willing to fund that. We put a cap at various levels of what that would be. I wouldn't say that 90% of organizations came up with ideas for themselves, but significant amount of people came up with some interesting ideas. And it put the power, the empowerment, and the responsibility in the hands of the employee.
How much percentage of that budget was utilized by the employee?
Fair amount.
Reasonably good.
Reasonably good, and probably equal to what we were spending the years before.
This is one of the big firms that we're talking to also they do individual allocation.
Correct.
Over and above the organization, they tell you, this is your menu. You use it the way you want.
Correct.
Of course, they don't go to the extent of saying how to learn belly dancing and guitar, but it must be relevant to your type of work or to the company.
Correct. So, and it really worked for us. And I'm going to, this is one learning for me for this afternoon. I'm going to probably go back and restart the program again. Thank you so much for the thought.
Let me come back to your point about that buddies teach. And I want to raise this, that what is to be taught and not how is to be taught. Whose call is it? And can buddy, who are peers, and sir, Ashwini sir, you mentioned about year 4 students teaching was different reason for lack of staff. But what is the downside of this, Arun?
So I think, we've all spoken a lot about skill-based learning and, how this whole digital world is needing for us to upgrade skills, which is a reality, which we will all have to do for the next 15 years, whether it's robotics, whether it's, anything else. But I think the one thing that we all also need to learn individually as we all are, managing different organizations is culture. And what the Buddy program has really helped us the most with, sir, is the cultural learning, right?
Not skill.
Skill is okay. We do the 555s for salespeople. We do, the radio jockey training or whatever. But it's a cultural training. I'm the founder CEO of this company that, we've now been around for 11 years. And I had a dream of building a typical type A organization. Right? And it's a very different culture from what most media organizations that I came from were about. And what other radio stations or other stations were about. And for me, it was most important individually and as the leadership team to imbibe culture in people from where, when they all joined the organization. The other thing we did very differently, because it was a new industry and it was an entirely new sector, is that we didn't hire a single person from the same sector. So we had 1,000 people and 500 in sales, knowledge worker, top end, consultancy sales, in radio who all came from telecom, banking, or insurance. And so we...
But Tarun, if I can interrupt, aren't we not mixing up induction with training?
No,
and
it wasn't. Because once you come in,
more induction.
right, culture is a big thing that you need to learn, right?
Yeah, but that's all right. But
And it doesn't happen at the day one when you join the organization. It happens at day 180, day 365, and for some people never, unfortunately. And that was my one big focus, that I can induct them into understanding radio, I can induct them into how radio sales is done, but I have to induct them into the culture of the organization. And that induction moves into learning from there on.
I'd just like to add here, in fact, I agree with Tarun and not with you. It is, the induction is again a very, very important part of the entire training process. What we were finding in State Bank of India is that we were not getting the sort of quality of direct recruits that we actually desired to have. And one of the feedbacks that we got was that there was no sort of mentoring or approaches which sort of made their own onboarding as well as the 2 years of probation that they had, as interesting as it should have been. And we, in fact, in our organization, we've done not only the mentoring, we also started running a buddy program where for each probationer about
So,
a
Ashwini
3-year
sir,
senior
can I safely
officer
assume that all of
becomes
us
the
who are-
buddy for this person.
Can I, Ashwini sir, safely assume that all of us who are LNOD professionals will be out of jobs very soon?
Yeah,
Are
in
you-
fact,
are you subscribing to the theory that LNOD can be done by anybody, or is it a specialist? Sanjay, what's your view on this? Is it a specialist function, or is it like nice to do? Anybody? I agree with both of you that some involvement of buddies and all will help, but are we going away from focusing on a specialist function that we all are? Well,
Sorry.
I'll come back to you, Tom.
So my belief is all functions today is everybody's responsibility. If you're part of the organization, then you bring certain skills, which is your functional specialty, but those skills are enabling others to also get part of your skill so that they're able to deploy on their people whom they work with. And Akhil, to your other question, and I'm just picking that up, who are you to decide on what I should learn is the first question that today's millennial ask. Simultaneously, work-life span cycles are crashing. What I wanted to achieve in career of 30 years, today's generation wants to achieve it in 5 years, 6 years.
True, very true.
So what I got bombarded with various initiatives in these 30 years, I need to do a crash course into 5 years, which is impossible to do. It's like flow of the river.
So, Sanjay, let me stop you here.
Sure.
Let me go back to the audience. How many of you really agree that what should be learned, what Sanjay and Ashwini sir mentioned, should be decided by learner only? So that means the organization has literally no role to play. Laissez-faire. How many of you agree? Only one. And why do you agree, sir? Very briefly.
Hi, my name is Savio. I'm from Infosys. The reason I agree with this is because you'll have a dotted line link with what a person chooses to eventually impact the organization outcomes. So it might take some time, but it will impact over a period of
So
time.
let me ask you a counter question, sir. That means the organization's needs are subsidiary to individuals' need.
It will eventually get there. That's what I'm saying.
How many of you disagree with this strongly? Can you respond to that, sir? Yeah. Can somebody give him a mic?
Hello, if organization needs are important, who's delivering those needs?
Let us hear him, Sanjay.
Because the person who has just entered the organization, he may not be aware of all the goals, all the strategies, all the,
needs,
expectations
the
and
needs,
needs.
future needs.
Then organization has to tell.
So by that same logic, I may learn to play saxophone and think is going to be manage my work-life balance and feel that I'm doing a great service to my organization. Tarun, what's your take on that? You said about guitar.
So, let's not take it very seriously. But I think, I'll take up to what Sandeep was saying. I'm a big believer in the 10,000 hours, right? You can do the 10,000 hours in 30 years. You can do the 10,000 hours today in 5 years or 3 years. But I'm a big believer in the outlier theory. And I believe that, L&D professionals should actually help executives, organizations, people build the 10,000 hours as quickly and as fast as possible.
So let me counter this. Sanjay, let me ask you that if we are talking about so much of laissez-faire and what is called empowerment, so to say, anyway, we are actually camouflaging delegation and relegation, calling it empowerment in this discussion.
Yeah, so what's happening in this discussion is we are putting pieces very differently in front of people. They are not integrated. And that's happening in our conversation.